Hello and welcome to Destination Draft Day. We are here excited for so much to talk about. Your one-stop shop for all things NFL draft, NFL talk, college football. We hope you guys had a great weekend. We hope that your brackets aren't too busted. We, just have a ton to talk about. I mean, there's been some breaking news even as early as today. Knicks guy Marcus Mariota is now Falcon. Matt Ryan's a Colt. Deshaun Watson's a Brown. We got everything to dive into. But before we dive into anything, Nick Durst, how you doing today?
Michael, I'm doing well. Last week I went out and did a little scouting. I went to the site of the NFL draft this year, checked it all out. I would not want to be there for the draft because this is the second week of March here. It was absolutely packed in Las Vegas. You couldn't even move around. I guess they're going to close down the strip, and it's just going to be absolutely insane. If it's anything like Nashville a few years ago, it's going to be really tough to make your way around in Las Vegas. But it was pretty cool to go around there, check some things out, go to the buffet, some museums, and I was trying to keep up with all this news. And I mean, the biggest news, I know you talked about it already, but we got to talk about our guy, Tom Brady. He's coming back for the year. Hopefully this means Gronk coming back too. And then today, Tom and Julian Edelman are throwing passes together. So Edelman's probably coming back. He's going to replace Antonio Brown. What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, it seems like there is something brewing in Tampa, that's for sure. I think Gronk will be back. I think there's a solid chance that Edelman returns and starts playing again. The Bucs really have had the NFC cleared out for them. Devontae Adams gone off the Packers.
Yep.
Matt Ryan now out of the NFC South. Drew Brees obviously gone, but Sean Payton gone out of the NFC South. Like, everything is looking up for Tampa Bay, and I think Tom Brady was already on the fence in terms of just competitiveness and just wanting to get involved. And he looked at this conference and said, look, I mean, I can handle that. I can make it work. And now it almost feels like a two-team race, honestly. I know the Packers are going to be in it. I know there's going to be some teams that will be considered after a good regular season, but it feels like it's between the Rams and Bucs when it comes to the NFC right now. And I don't think anyone else is really going to get involved unless the 49ers really improve.
Both of us agree. The Bucs should be the favorites to win the Super Bowl right now. And I think last year, without the injuries, they at least going back to the Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers must be really pissed right now. No Devontae Adams. Who is he going to throw to? I mean, they better sign Jarvis Landry because really I couldn't name anybody who's going to be making an impact there. By nature of their division, they'll still be a good team. They'll win, but I don't see them going to the Super Bowl at this point. The Rams, they're loading up, so they're still going to be in the conversation. But as we saw last year, it's hard to win 2 years in a row. So this is the Bucs conference to lose. I think they're the favorites. They should be the favorites. I'd say Tom Brady's going to have another MVP-like season at this point. If you're a Bucs fan, you have to be really excited because you were looking at, not making the playoffs. Now you're looking at going to the Super Bowl perhaps here. Some guys have gone, but the core awesome superstars are going to be there, we think. And you mentioned the Saints. They are... Who knows what they're going to do? I guess Winston's going to come back. They're going to get Watson. The Falcons, who I said were going to be good this year, they get rid of Matt Ryan. Not sure really what to think of them. I like that Marcus Mariota is going to start. I think he's going to do solid, but they're not going to be a threat for a Super Bowl. Panthers, who's going to be their quarterback? Are they going to get Baker Mayfield? What are they going to do here? I don't know what they're going to do. Maybe Mayfield goes to the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle's going to be terrible. 49ers will be in the playoff mix. Rams mentioned the Cardinals are going to be in the playoff mix, but they have some controversy with Kyle Murray. The East is going to be terrible. We could assume that the Eagles and Cowboys will be in the play there, but Tom Brady's looking at this and he's like, well, I'm going to win this. This is a great shot for me to go out on top. Both agree, go out, this year, win the Super Bowl, then he's going to retire. It's awesome to see him playing. It wasn't time for him to step away yet, but the rest of the QB stuff has just been wild. Watson going to the Browns. I don't even think this makes the Browns a playoff team because I think he's going to be suspended. So I don't know who's playing quarterback for the Browns. As of now, they still have Baker Mayfield on the roster. I don't see any scenario where
They
Watson's
signed Jacoby Brissett, which I think is going to be
he's gonna
the
start.
guy that steps in.
At this point, if you don't think Watson's getting suspended at least 4 games, then you're crazy. So, yeah, how's that going to work out? Trubisky, of course, he is going to start for the Steelers, which I like. So I'm on the Steelers. They also have the best coach in that division. Harbaugh, if he gets his guys healthy, I think the Ravens should be the favorites. The Bengals just went to the Super Bowl, so we know they're good, although the Super Bowl loser rarely goes back to the playoffs. The AFC is just so loaded right now. The Colts are getting Matt Ryan, which I think can put them ahead of the Titans to win that division. Are they going to go to the Super Bowl? I don't know. The West is just so packed with talent. It's going to be a real battle to come out of the AFC. And out of all those teams, I like the Bills the best.
Yeah, there seems to be 2 QBs that are primarily talked about right now that have yet to be moved, and that's Baker Mayfield and Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, in terms of open quarterback positions, I mean, there's places you could say, oh, yeah, they're going to potentially land there. You know, they could easily draft someone. But most likely it seems like the Panthers and the Seahawks are the 2 that are wide open in terms of just no one's necessarily set in stone to start there. So, I mean, it would make the most sense for Jimmy to end up on one of those teams, Baker to end up on one of those teams. But the odds are it won't work out like that. The odds are, you know, one of them are going to draft a rookie quarterback. The other, you know, maybe gets like a Baker Mayfield. But overall, there's not going to be a ton of just every QB gets this perfect landing spot. If the 49ers have Jimmy Garoppolo back next year, you know, the whole thing was Trey Lance would be the QB going forward. Jimmy was kind of this 1-year option, Trey Lance to get ready. Do you think this becomes a real quarterback battle, or do you think the 49ers will be able to find somewhere that Jimmy is the QB going forward?
I think they're going to have to just release Garoppolo because it would be really ugly to bring him back as the backup. And at this point, I don't think anybody's going to trade for him to be their starter unless the Panthers want him. And the Panthers probably going to, I guess they're going to take a quarterback, right? And they'd have to, you know, trade Darnold in that trade to have that cap space for Garoppolo. Yeah, I think Garoppolo is going to be in the outside looking in, as is Baker Mayfield. I'm like, either of these guys are going to go into the season at this point as starting quarterbacks. I would say maybe Baker Mayfield, the Panthers say, let's go with him as our guy. But, I mean, it's tough to say. I think unless, you know, because I think the Steelers are going to go with Trubisky and maybe they draft Kenny Pickett or whatever. And that's the way they're going to go. The Falcons here, it seems like they're going to be in tank mode. So they're going to play Mariota and then they'll draft their quarterback. So where's Garoppolo going? Unless, you know, all of a sudden the Giants are like, let's make a trade for him. But I think at this point, what are you going to get for him? The 7th round pick? Because everybody knows you need to move him. So there's no value there. You know, Matt Ryan went for a 3rd round pick, and Matt Ryan is maybe a Hall of Famer. So what are you going to get for Garoppolo where you know the 49ers are dying to get rid of him? Really, I think maybe a 7th or 6th round pick.
It hurts the market, that's for sure. And I think that Mayfield is going to get you a good pick. I think that Mayfield has way too much upside and enticing traits to where a team's still going to be willing to send at least a 2nd. I would think a 1st, but it really just kind of depends. It'd probably be like a Carson Wentz type 1st where it's a 2nd that can turn into a 1st, assuming he qualifies with his stats or whatever. But for Jimmy Garoppolo, yeah, I mean, this is someone that the 49ers seem to have all the leverage on in the world. Like a lot of teams seemed very needy for quarterback, but they waited too long on it. And now it seems like they could very easily roll it back with Jimmy as almost like a starter again next year that, you know, eventually gets benched. I don't know. It seems like a weird situation. I don't love it for San Francisco. I think they need to be a little bit more urgent in getting rid of their QB. And I also don't love some of the other moves in the NFL. I feel like Jimmy Garoppolo is probably a better option than Carson Wentz, especially when you compare what the price was for Wentz. It's a weird situation, and it's going to be one that we'll certainly have to follow, and I'm sure we'll get some clarity on eventually. But, I mean, you have to trade him within this next month, because if you wait until after draft day, you're probably not going to ship them out.
Right. And, count the Saints out. They did bring back Winston. So, listen, Garoppolo is going to be in wanted, but it's like, what can you get for him? And is he coming as a starter? I don't know. Seattle, they seem like ready to roll with Locke for this year. They traded for Locke. The Texans are going to roll with Davis Mills, because otherwise they would have said send us Baker back in the trade. It's going to be interesting here. It seems like, maybe like every team other than 4 or 5 are going for it next year at this point.
Absolutely. I mean, there's just so many teams that seem invested in the quarterback position, and it's going to be extremely intriguing to watch how it pays out. And I think it's going to be something that we might see a consistent trend of going forward. I mean, we've already heard all these scrambling rumors of QBs that could very easily be traded next year. I mean, what's going to happen if Arizona misses out on the playoffs and Kyler Murray's unhappy still with the Cardinal situation? Most likely they hire another head coach and they keep Murray. But, I mean, there's also a chance that they trade him now with how the NFL has kind of played out in terms of just being willing to ship off these pieces. So, guys like Kyler Murray, guys like Kirk Cousins, guys like Derek Carr that have been heavy in trade rumors, if the season doesn't turn out how you'd want for them, is this going to be a situation where, we start seeing them dealt rather than kind of saying, oh, man, didn't work out, let's see what we can do to kind of fix it up? And, I mean, it seems like the NFL is more than willing now in today's era to ship these pieces off and make the big trade in hopes of kind of rebuilding a team through the draft and getting the capital that the quarterback position can offer.
And there's going to be teams in the QB market. We both agree the Giants are going to be looking for a QB next year. The Eagles are maybe going to be in the QB market. The Commanders are probably going to be looking for a QB. So that's 3 teams in one division alone that are probably looking for quarterbacks. The Texans, they're probably going to be looking for somebody. The Falcons, the Saints. So that's already 7 teams looking for people. So I'd expect a lot more movement next year as well.
Absolutely. And I think that's certainly one of the things that's going to be interesting with all these contracts. Jameis Winston getting a 2-year deal. Mitch Trubisky getting a 2-year deal. Yeah, these guys are on getting contracts, but they aren't long-term options. I mean, Jameis Winston could easily get shipped off next year if the Saints feel that they have a chance to land someone that would be an improvement in their minds. I mean, the Saints were pretty much openly pursuing Deshaun Watson, saying, look, we want Watson over Winston, and it didn't work out. They get Winston. They're happy with Winston, but I think it shows that they are very much looking to improve at the quarterback position. So maybe they draft someone, but at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing, more and more of these teams kind of unwilling to sit on their hands when it comes to the quarterback position and trying to trade up. And, when there's pieces like a Derek Carr who, if the Raiders just kind of fall victim to the AFC West being too good, Derek Carr would be a great quarterback to have. Kyler Murray is one of the best, young quarterbacks in the league. So he'd be extremely exciting to get, and people would be willing to pay the price for it.
Right.
So,
yeah, I mean look at the Titans. If the Titans can't, get over the hump there, maybe they want to move over from Tannehill to get a Kyler Murray.
Yeah, exactly. Those are the situations where these teams have to be brutally honest with themselves and accept, hey, if we keep rolling this back with the same roster, we're just going to miss our window because it just doesn't happen. So you try to get a QB that kind of sets you over the top, and I think that's what we're kind of seeing as a trend in the NFL, and I think it's why most teams are now willing to kind of go out and swing for the fences when it comes to the quarterback position.
Right, and we could kind of guess, I think next year the Lions will be looking to take a quarterback as well in the draft.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some of these teams are certainly going to be quarterback focused in terms of drafting, but there's plenty of teams that are going to be in the market for trying to get a veteran. I mean, Tampa Bay is probably going to lose Tom Brady, and you could argue that every single team in the NFC South is going to be needing a new quarterback next offseason, or at least, kicking tires on new QBs. So certainly plenty of teams that will be needy again next year and the year after and the year after, because the QB carousel in the NFL never sleeps.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Your Broncos, yeah, Russell Wilson. I mean that the West there is really going to be very competitive. maybe the Chiefs are the team on the outside looking in. Maybe things just don't break their way. They were able to rebound last year, but at some point, I think the cookie's going to crumble there with the Chiefs. And maybe we thought that Mahomes deal was crazy, but now it's like, wow, what a steal when Watson's getting $230 million guaranteed.
Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs definitely have some answers that they have to figure out for this offseason. They need to fix up the defense. They just lost Charvarius Ward, who's their best corner. They will try to run it back with young, valuable options, but at the same time, there's been some exposure when it comes to their defense. Buffalo passed all over them. Teams are able to run all over them. Like, you need edge help. You need corner help. You still need linebacker help. Yes, you can draft some guys, but you're not going to have this completely overhauled defense when you're going against Russell Wilson twice a year, when you're going against a Derek Carr-led Raiders that has Devontae Adams and Darren Waller in the same offense, when you have Justin Herbert, who is one of the most young, exciting quarterbacks in the NFL. I mean, that's going to be tough for the Chiefs to kind of match. And obviously, Mahomes is special. Mahomes is going to have this offense cooking. But if the defense isn't good enough, then there's going to be legitimate issues when it comes to the Chiefs in terms of trying to win the division.
Who are you favoring right now in that division? I mean, obviously no draft yet, so just your initial thing, which are kind of based off, I guess, coach and QB combo.
Yeah, I think I got to go with the Chargers. Yeah. I think with the addition of J.C. Jackson, with the continued development of Justin Herbert, with the additions to the offensive line, with adding Khalil Mack, I mean, there is a ton of upside there. I think that they will continue to address the defensive line, continue to improve the run defense, and I think that kind of opens the door to the Chargers really ultimately kind of making your team one of the best in the division, one of the best in the conference. I wouldn't be surprised if the Chargers come out of the AFC. That's how good they are. I think they have a really good team. I think they have a lot of talent. I think with Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, they even signed Gerald Everett, who I think is a pretty solid tight end. I mean, they have plenty of potential to make some big moves this season. And, I mean, it all rides on Justin Herbert, but I think the team is definitely good enough to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with you right now. It's a tremendous division there. Nobody's looking for a quarterback there anytime soon. They're all set, which is great. And the other big QB signing is Tyrod Taylor to my New York Giants. And it's only a matter of time before he's starting because Daniel Jones will get injured again. But I don't know what they're doing, this new regime. But if you go into this season with Daniel Jones as their starting quarterback, you will not win more than 5 games because A, when he is healthy, he turns the ball over. And B, he's not healthy a lot. He gets hurt. But at least Tyrod Taylor is a big upgrade over Mike Glennon.
Yeah, I mean, I think they are going with Daniel Jones in the sense of they're just going to give him another year. I don't think he's a long-term answer, but it seems as though the Giants are more set on trying to kind of overhaul this roster and then figure out QB later. I don't love it because I don't think the Giants are bad enough to where they're going to be in this premier spot to pick a top quarterback. I think, you get a Malik Willis in this draft, you're going to be very happy with the payout. You can figure out the rest of your roster as you go. Getting a starter caliber offensive lineman is so much easier in the second, third, fourth round than it is with the quarterback position. And so I like the idea of waiting and building the rest of your roster, especially with the mobility and just upside that Malik Willis has to offer. But it seems as though the Giants are more willing to kind of wait on the QB position.
Yeah, I think that's the way they're going to go about it. I think they're going to go offensive line or defensive end there, but I really don't know who's drafting quarterbacks high this year. So very curious to see, who is the first quarterback off the board. More excited to see like where that person goes off the board because it's going to be pretty interesting. And one thing to touch on here is David Ojabo, gruesome injury. He's out until at least October now. What do you think this does with his draft stock? Where'd you have him pre-injury, and where do you see him falling now post-injury?
Yeah, I thought he was a top 20 pick when you were talking about this guy pre-injury. He still had some development that was needed, but he had plenty of upside and athleticism that really made him an intriguing option on the edge. And now I think there's still a lot of intrigue. There's still a lot of potential, but he's someone that probably falls into that 40 range. He could still go in the first round, maybe become a second-round pick, but still early. But really, a lot of these teams are kind of punting on his impact in year one because not only does he have to get healthy, he still needs to develop as a player. So I think for David Ojabo, he's still got plenty of upside. He still could easily have a career. Achilles isn't as big of a career killer as it was at one time. A lot of teams have kind of done tremendous medical progression to where these guys are able to come back from that. But there's still plenty of work for him to do, plenty of healthy time that he needs to spend. So there's some upside for him still. But I think right now it's probably going to send him back to late first to mid-second type range, and I'd bet on him being a second-round pick.
If you're a good team and you're able to get him, I guess later in the second round, he could be really valuable for you down the stretch. But if you're one of those bad teams in the top 5, in the second round, pretty risky. So curious to see how that turns out. That's for sure. All right, Michael, it's time to talk some more draft now. But so much going on here, and we're a month away from the draft now. But free agency has been crazy so far.
Yeah, I mean, diving into the quarterback position, the top 10 for this class for me, I go with D'Eriq King at number 10. This is someone that, has the upside to potentially get it all worked out. The big issue for him is injuries. He has been decimated with injuries. An older guy, 24 years old on draft day, turns 25 in August. This is someone that it's not worked out in terms of health, but the upside is there. He's got a quick release, some very nice arm strength, some good mobility. But, he has some issues as well. It's not just the injury, but there's some consistency on the deep ball that's needed. He handles pressure all right. He gets away. But there's some times where he can't handle someone kind of charging at him head on. And that's what's going to hurt him at the NFL level. But ultimately, D'Eriq King is someone that is a playmaker, that has the mobility, the traits of a quarterback that could easily start in the NFL. There is certainly going to be probably a substantial draft stock that hits him just because of the fact that he is not able to be healthy. And that's what you're looking for in these late round quarterbacks, is someone that's going to be a backup option for your team. And out of a backup, you want durability. And D'Eriq King doesn't offer that. So you're looking at a guy that, yes, he has the upside, but probably goes undrafted because of the fact that he's never been able to put together a full healthy season. May have to switch out of that quarterback position. Him and Skylar Thompson are two guys that I definitely enjoy in this class, but the durability concerns just completely kept them out of this, top 10 list right here, or at least the top 9, just because of that major red flag in that regard. At number 9, I go with Jack Cohn, the transfer quarterback from Wisconsin, went to Notre Dame this season, put together some solid play, nice stout frame. He's got very impressive sizes. I think he's 6'4", like 220 something. Really a guy that is going to be just a safe type of player. I don't think he's going to really produce into much, but I think there's a lot of spot starter upside with him. I think he's going to be a backup in this league for a long time. Nice physicality, very tough player, has some decent passes, needs some more consistency in that regard. I think there's some times where his immobility kind of shines through and it becomes an issue in the passing game, but ultimately he's one of those QBs that it wouldn't surprise me if he just sticks around in the league for 12 years because he's just that dependable, that consistent as a passer. At number 8, I go with Caleb Ellaby out of Western Michigan. This is someone that I actually knew through the high school circuit. We went to a couple camps at the same time. So, making me feel old now seeing these guys, get drafted when I was, in high school at the same time with them. It's nuts, but really just someone that I think has some impressive tools. He's got some nice deep touch, made some good throws against Michigan, against some of the other teams they played against. He wasn't necessarily stepping up to the competition. Pittsburgh, Michigan were the big teams they played against. He still lost in Michigan and he beat Pittsburgh, but he made some very good throws and some very impressive plays. Has nice setup speed, good deep touch, very effective in the RPO game. He's worked with NFL receivers like Sky Moore, Dwayne Eskridge. He's got some experience in terms of throwing to those guys, and I think that helps him a lot. I don't love his throw power. I think that he has some hero ball traits in his game where he will force throws just because he's feeling the pressure and he wants to try to make a play downfield. And that's going to result in some ugly turnovers. But ultimately, I made sure when I turned on LB's tape that I wasn't trying to be biased because I knew the guy. But I was actually pleasantly surprised with a lot of the traits that he showed, with a lot of the skill set that he showed as a passer. I don't think he's someone that maybe offers as much upside. I think there's still some limitations in terms of just overall arm talent. But he plays a pretty dependable game, and I think it's one that could translate into becoming, a solid backup in the NFL. And I think that is something that a lot of teams will be happy to take a late round pick on. Another guy that, just set the college football world on fire, Bailey Zappe out of Western Kentucky. It might be Zappe, actually. Bailey Zappe out of Western Kentucky. And, this is someone that was just tremendous all season for the Hilltoppers. Came out of Houston Baptist and then transferred up to Western Kentucky, got an offer, and just ultimately dominated. 62 passing touchdowns, only 11 interceptions, threw for 5,967 yards on 69% completion percentage. A lot of people compare Zappe to Case Keenum because, he had that same type of dominance in terms of production at the college football level, but ultimately the tools don't translate. I don't see a Case Keenum when it comes to Zappe. I think there's some ability there, but I don't think he's kind of up there at the Keenum level. There's a lack of arm strength, but he has some very nice layering ability as a passer. He has nice touch. I think the transition to the NFL is going to be a little bit difficult because, yes, the NFL has adapted to this air raid offense. The NFL has made reads simpler for quarterbacks. But I don't think that means a guy coming from a Zappe Western Kentucky offense is going to necessarily be able to make that jump. So, I think Zappe has some upside, has some stability to potentially get into that low-end starter type, bridge QB type quarterback. I think there's still a lot of growth needed in his game. I think there's still a lot of questions in terms of the overall tools and skill set that holds him back from being in the same conversation as some of these other quarterbacks in this class. Now, this is where the interesting part kind of comes in because for a lot of draft media, there's a big 6 for this class. And for me, number 6 is Kenny Pickett, who a lot of people have as the number 1 quarterback. I'd say really it's between Pickett and Willis for the top number 1 for just the most commonly picked number 1 quarterback. But for me, I don't see it with Pickett. I think he has some nice ability to extend plays. He's a physical runner, makes some nice throws. He threw one ball against Tennessee that was just stupendous in terms of arm talent and ability to put the ball out there. But his overall arm talent, just a little bit inconsistent for me. I think his overall control on his passes lacks a little bit. I'm not sure how I feel about the hands. I don't think it's a big deal. Like, there's been guys that have small hands and they make it work in the NFL. But for Kenny Pickett, there's a lot of lacking control on his passes. You'll see the ball wobble when he's trying to throw a spiral into tight windows. And at the NFL level, those tight windows get tighter. The ball gets bigger. I worry how that's going to transition to the NFL, and that's the big concern I have for him. The decision-making is good. I think he really developed a lot in terms of how he threw at the next level or in this senior year. I think the progression from 2020 to 2021 was extremely intriguing, makes him promising in that regard, but I don't love his overall arm talent. I think it's about average. I think there is a little bit of lack of control on his passes. And while there's some nice moments and he has some nice traits, and he's been this longtime leader for the Pittsburgh Panthers, when it comes to spending a first-round pick on a quarterback, I would be all the way out on Kenny Pickett if I were a team really kind of looking for my franchise quarterback. And I know that, there's going to be teams that heavily disagree with me. There's going to be teams that would literally think this is the worst opinion I could ever have, and it's a horrible evaluation of his play. And it could very well be where 5 years down the line, I'm wrong on Pickett. I mean, Nick will tell you more than anyone. I was definitely wrong on Josh Allen. Like, I thought Josh Allen was going to be this huge mistake for the Bills, and he ended up being a superstar. So I'm not saying I'm perfect when it comes to evaluating quarterbacks, but in my opinion and evaluation of Kenny Pickett, I would be out on him as a quarterback in terms of the value that he would require to get. At number 5, Carson Strong, a quarterback that really caught a lot of eyes in the offseason heading into the season. A pocket passer through and through. That's going to be kind of the big issue for him is his lack of mobility. He's not the fastest. He doesn't really get out and become a scrambler very quickly, and that's going to set up some issues, especially in today's NFL. He doesn't set up as quickly as you'd like. He can have some issues in terms of reading defenses downfield. He likes to throw the ball deep. He's definitely a slinger, but there's times where he kind of gets a little selfish in that regard and makes throws that should not be made. I like the confidence. I like that he's willing to fire deep. I think that gunslinger mentality is huge, especially with all the QBs that kind of stay conservative and never open up the offense because of it. But I think there's still much needed in terms of just kind of making better reads as a downfield passer. He has nice touch on his passes. He doesn't necessarily throw with a lot of velocity, but he can throw with a lot of accuracy downfield. Kind of reminds me of Phillip Rivers in that regard, just being able to kind of put the ball downfield with nice arc on his passes to where his receiver is the one coming down with it. And that's going to kind of sell teams on him. I think he's a really good fit for Indianapolis. I know they're trading for Matt Ryan, but I wouldn't be surprised if they still look for a quarterback in this class. And I think Carson Strong will be an excellent fit for what they're looking for in terms of their quarterback play. At number 4, Desmond Ridder, quarterback out of Cincinnati, a very mobile QB that has a great build. Just one of the leaders of Cincinnati, one of the most all-time winning quarterbacks in NCAA history. He's got nice arm talent. There's a lot of Jordan Love in his game in terms of he maybe doesn't have the most downfield passing ability, but he puts a lot of torque on his passes, makes some impressive throws that you're saying, okay, yeah, we can work with that. Very nice mobility, very great upside. He's someone that, for the coaches, he was sitting in meetings, consistently talking to coaches saying, how can I get better? What can I do to improve? And that mentality is what you need as a project quarterback. He was attending every player's meeting, but also attending every coach's meeting. And, everything that the Cincinnati coaches say about this guy is rave reviews. Not just what they say in terms of, oh, is he good? And they're saying yes. Everything they talk about when it comes to Ridder is excellent. I mean, he's someone that has the mobility, but he wants to be a passer first. He's someone that is extremely invested in growing his game. I don't love Ridder. I know there's a lot of people that view him as QB1 and thinks that he's this future superstar. But I do think that in terms of upside, Ridder probably offers some of the most, if he works out, this is going to be special type of talent. And I wouldn't be surprised if we're looking back at this list and Ridder's, 1 or 2 on this list because of just how talented he is. At number 3, I got Matt Corral, quarterback out of Ole Miss. My comparison for him is Jalen Hurts, and I know a lot of people may hear that and kind of wince at the idea of spending a first-round pick on that. But I think there's some upside with Hurts, and you're looking at a guy that hasn't had the NFL experience, hasn't gotten to grow in the NFL, and is a year younger. So that's where the upside comes with Corral. I think he's extremely efficient in the RPO passing game. He has some extremely talented arm velocity. He's very mobile, very good runner. I think he's someone that is just able to make plays with his legs consistently, really developed that regard in 2021, or at least showcased it. And it made me really sold on him. He's inconsistent a little bit when it comes to throwing downfield. There's times where he just makes some great throws, and then there's times where he just completely misses the mark. That's something that needs to grow because you can't miss out on open passes at the next level. And that's something that Corral kind of has those misfires, kind of has those issues to where you're going to stall drives at the NFL level if you can't take advantage of the easy opportunities that they'll give you. Off platform, I think he needs a little work when working in play action. There were some throws that just did not have the same accuracy that you'd like to see. Overall, he's a very tough quarterback with potential as a passer. I like what I see out of him. I think he's going to be someone that gets drafted, wins the team over with his toughness, kind of plays maybe not ever as a high-level quarterback in the NFL, but I think he's someone that can be in that 10 to 20 range as a starter And, with a quarterback like that, you're able to succeed in the NFL. And I think the upside for Corral is to be in that 10-20 range and be a nice long-term starter for whatever team brings him in. At number 2, I have Sam Howell, who kind of same as Corral. I don't think he's ever going to be a superstar in the NFL, but I think you put him on a right team, on a team that has kind of a built-in offensive line, some nice weapons in there, this QB away situation. I think a guy like Howell is where you bring him in, and I think he can really kind of take advantage of that. Before the Wentz trade, I was saying to Nick almost every episode, I love Sam Howell with Washington Commanders, and I think it's kind of that similar situation where if you can get him with these receivers that know how to run the routes, the opportunity to kind of give him more protection than he got in this last season at North Carolina, he's going to showcase some great stuff. Look, North Carolina this year was extremely disappointing, but if you watch the tape, it's not a lot of it on Howell. A lot of it is this offensive line was getting busted through in 2 seconds with Howell having no time to really let a passing game develop. So his offense became RPO efficient, and while it worked, sometimes there were definitely some mistakes that came with it. He still grew in terms of traits, and I think that's what I like about Howell. In 2020, whenever I watched his tape, I thought he was a very good passer, but there were some issues in terms of, can he really make these throws off platform when he's rolling to his left? Can he throw instead of having to set up? Can he really develop as a downfield passer? And when he got those opportunities, he took advantage. Howell definitely didn't have like this perfect season. I'm not saying like, oh, the offensive line is to blame and Howell just deserves no disrespect for the season. He had his errors. He had some issues. He kind of played hero ball at times where, we see that with Justin Fields, Caleb Ellaby, Carson Strong, where he'll force some passes when you absolutely should not. But ultimately, I think Howell showed enough traits and progression in terms of natural tools that I still think he's one of the top quarterbacks in this class. And I think in terms of the NFL, he's probably going to be a second-round pick, like based on what we're seeing from this draft. And I think getting a guy like Howell in the second round is going to be a tremendous payoff because he's someone that I think a lot of people would, in 2-3 years, be easily willing to give a first-round pick for. And, I think that's a great sign of success for what I expect him from his play. And then number 1, Malik Willis out of Liberty. Look, yes, you can argue that he lost to a bad quarterback at Auburn and Bo Nix, and that's concerning. Yes, you can argue that there were times this season where he did not turn out a great performance, like against Ole Miss. But in terms of natural tools, these are the guys that you kind of not necessarily dismiss their college work, but you look at the tools more so than the production that he turned in on the field because there's just so much natural talent there to turn him into a superstar. He has tremendous contact balance and mobility to be a extremely effective runner. He has a rocket of an arm, just natural ability to send the ball downfield with extreme velocity. He can throw off balance. He can throw off platform when needed. He has the upside to make plays downfield and throw this ball just so far. I think his internal clock is something that needs a lot of work. He can kind of sit in the pocket and have it collapse on him and then just not make a play, and he'll try to scramble around and lose some yards. He has kind of like that Kyler Murray-esque type deal where he'll scramble around and just get sacked for a huge loss. That's not something that you want. But I think there's a lot of progress in that regard. Another thing that has issues for him is his anticipatory throwing. You need to be better at just seeing guys open. And I think Malik Willis, not only does he have issues in terms of that, but he also does a ball pat, which takes like a half a second off of his timer. And if you do that, that's going to result in some plays getting picked off and some issues happening. It doesn't necessarily kill you. Like there are plenty of star quarterbacks that pat the ball before they throw. But, when you have your issues as an anticipatory thrower, when you have your issues of patting the ball combined, it's gonna create some bad passes at the NFL level. Now, whatever coach gets with him, I think is going to try to work it out. I think there's going to be some work in terms of trying to kind of make him grow as a quarterback in terms of reading the offense. There's some talk at the combine that he blew teams away in that regard. So I think there's plenty of potential there for him to kind of iron out these issues. But for me, Malik Willis offers the most upside, offers the most natural talent. And in a class like this, I think, there's three guys that I feel confident in as starters. I think I like Willis, I like Howell, and I like Corral. I think guys like Ritter have potential, but ultimately, for Malik Willis, this is someone that if you told me someone's going to be a superstar in this class, I'd probably put all my chips in on Willis.
Wow. All right, Michael. Well, interesting list. So I'll give you my top five. But first, I want to say Matt Corral is not in my top five because he reminds me a lot of Paxton Lynch. Very overhyped. Like, he's going to be the man, and he's not. I don't even know if Lynch is in the league anymore as he's a third stringer. I'm not really sure. But he just reminds me of him for some reason. My number 5 quarterback is going to be Jack Cohn. Most wins ever at Notre Dame as a quarterback, and he was really impressive in the Senior Bowl. I think it was the game MVP, so there's some upside there for him, but I agree with you, probably a backup. Number 4, I'll say Desmond Ritter. I think he's got a very unique skill set. Again, probably a backup in this league, stick around for a while. Not necessarily a superstar there. My 3rd quarterback, I'm going to go with Malik Willis. I think he could be a solid starter in this league. Just don't know where the fit's going to be in this draft. Number 2, I'm going to go the same with you, Sam Howell. I think it was a rough season for him last year, but his previous season he was fantastic. And I think with him, it's all going to be about where he ends up and what's around him. If you put him on a really bad team, he's not going to have a great career. If you put him on a team that, they have really good offense, good offensive line, that I think he's going to be able to be successful. Last but not least, number 1, I'm going to say Kenny Pickett. And the reason for that is I think he had the best season of any quarterbacks. And I think if he ends up in somewhere like Pittsburgh, he's going to be a tremendous fit.
Yeah, and I mean, we brought Chris Landry on the show last year, and he told us all about how he feels landing spots crucial for these quarterbacks. And I think in this class, it matters more than anything. I mean, we saw Trevor Lawrence turn in a season where he kind of struggled because the Jacksonville Jaguars did not put a good foundation around him, right. And some injuries happened, and what was one of the most talented rookie quarterbacks kind of was up and down all season. Now, does that mean Lawrence is just screwed for his career? Probably not, but who knows? But ultimately, I mean, a lot of these young QBs, they need a nice landing spot. And I think in a class like this where there's talent, but there's certainly a lot of uncertainty, then yeah, I think landing spot's crucial. So the QB who lands with Pittsburgh is probably going to be in a lot better situation than the QB who lands with Atlanta, where they're still, looking to try to rebuild the entire roster, and maybe they get Mariota to kind of take on this first year mostly. But ultimately, it's definitely more convenient to be in a place where you're throwing to Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, have Najee Harris in the backfield, and some invested offensive line now that they've kind of spent some money on.
And a great coach that's never had a losing record.
One of the best coaches in the NFL. So certainly an upside situation to where I think there's a lot of landing spot involvement in terms of these guys' success. And I think that's honestly why I kind of lean Willis, is because I think even if he's in a bad spot in terms of offensive line, he has the mobility to kind of overcome that, where a lot of these other guys, yes, they're mobile, but they're going to have their issues. And I think Willis can still kind of make plays to kind of put together a good rookie season, and then they'll be like, all right, now we got to actually protect them. But, ultimately, we'll see what happens on draft day. We'll see what happens, over the course of the rest of this draft season. But very exciting quarterback class. I know a lot of people kind of hype it as this terrible class, this awful, there's no real starting options. There's going to be some starters in this class. It's just there's not a clear-cut number 1 talent. There's not this clear-cut generational talent. So people are, acting as if it's awful. If you're getting someone like Sam Howell in round 2, I mean, that's a very good value. So don't sell yourself short on this quarterback class. There are starters to be had. There's talent to be had. And, in the right landing spot, some of these guys could really flourish into some really top tier quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah, I think, like we said, it's all going to come down to who goes where this year.
All right. Well, that's pretty much all we have for you here on Destination Draft Day. I'm Michael Rochman. That's Nick Durst. We hope you guys have a great week. We will be back on Friday to talk about the running backs in this class and hopefully some more trades. Why not just like 20 more superstars being on the move? So we'll talk to you guys on Friday. Take care.